Afternoon, guys. Welcome to today's UEFA Europa League final press conference. We've got around 20 minutes, so ask for a maximum of 2 questions per person, and please use the microphone provided. Gail, I think you're starting us off, aren't you?
Well, so. You've obviously had a busy schedule since Thursday night, but have you had any time at all to reflect on what awaits, what's happened, you know, just a moment, particularly with your family, and I know, are your boys happy they're getting a day off school to come to Bilbao?
Yeah, probably about getting a couple of days off school. No, look, I think, like I said, it's been pretty busy, but there's also some planning that needs to happen, and some practicalities around. A lot of it is just logistics and making sure that, particularly with the players, we give them the best preparation possible. So you've got to do a few things, pretty early on around logistics and making sure that everyone's organised. So that takes your mind to that final. But obviously, like I said, we had a game in between. So it's more been around the sort of practicalities of it than anything else.
I think, I'm sure you've spoken about it since, but seeing you in the dressing room afterwards, that sort of rare glimpse that we don't often get privy to, that gave us a sense of what you've been through to get here. And does that make it kind of even more special when you get to Bilbao in next time?
No, I think, I've said before, I think whenever you sort of, irrespective of the circumstances, when you get to such a significant moment, I think there's always, an understanding of both on a personal level, but more importantly as a group, what we've had to overcome to get there. And I think every team's got their own story, and in those kind of moments, it's the emotion of it and how you've overcome the odds to get to where you are. Really important to recognise for the group, and I guess for myself individually. So I was really proud of the fact that against the backdrop of some real difficulties and some massive challenges, that the group still found a way to get to the final and give us an opportunity of something pretty special.
Matt.
Ange. Before the last final in Europe, the Champions League final in 2019, the Spurs players were walking on hot coals and breaking arrows against their throat as part of the preparation. What are your plans? Any time
we've got
for
enough
anything
injuries,
like
mate. We've got enough injuries. I'm putting them in cotton wool for the next 10 days. Anything seriously with the way things have gone with us this year, any extracurricular activities are going to be at a minimum. I don't know if you were watching training today. We had Reggie tackle Brennan, and they were on the same team. So, goes to show how we're going.
Well, we're on that sort of thing. Check up on Sonny and how you see this for him, and also with the sort of emotional factor that he's been here for a long time and not won anything. Yeah,
look, he's. Firstly, from a physical standpoint, he's good. I think it was important he got some minutes yesterday. He needed them more for himself psychologically than anything else. And he had a good session today. He was never going to do the whole session because he played yesterday, and he feels good. So we've still got sort of 8 or 9 days to go, and a game on Friday where we can build him up. And great to have him available. Like you said, he's been a big catalyst this year and a big driver of. He understands probably better than most what a trophy would mean for this football club and for him personally, because he's had an unbelievable career here in which he's done just about everything. But the key bit, that silverware that every player craves for, he knows how important it is for the club, but also for how significant it will be for him personally. So the fact that he's back and available is good.
Ali.
We were there for that moment with Reggie and Brendan. Are you kind of watching kind of training now with that kind of half wince? I mean, how do you kind of...
it's just, like I said, it's just, it seems to be how our season's gone, and, you don't want to you want to protect the integrity of training, and we've got to train at a certain level, but they're the quirks of things that happen. Thankfully, nothing too serious, and yeah, you just got to hope and pray that the football gods have run out of sort of challenges to throw to us this year.
Football gods, Decky, how's he looking?
Yeah, we'll see. He was a bit sore this morning with his knee, but like I said, it looks like a knock at this stage. But we're going to let it settle for sort of 24 hours and then assess it. But the initial thing was it's more of a knock than anything more significant.
And I asked you this last night, but to expand on it, how big a player does Kulusevski feel, given the absence of Maddison and Bergvall, just in terms of providing that creativity in the field?
Yeah, look, like you said, Daniel, we've obviously lost Maddison and Bergvall in the last 2 weeks, so it's just, yeah. And, yesterday I only had 3 players that were supposed to, going to back up, and they're all going to play 45 minutes, and, sod's law, it's one of those that gets injured. And look, he is important, but where we are right now, they're all important, obviously. And the thing with Decky was that he obviously missed a fair bit of football, but I can just sense he was sort of getting back into the groove of things. I thought there's some real promising signs. At Bodo, we had to do a really disciplined job for us in terms of defensively, but he started to show some of that attacking creativity. And I thought he started the game really well yesterday. So I thought our first 10 minutes were actually okay, and then he gets injured. So he's pretty important to us in the context of kind of where the squad is at the moment. So fingers crossed he's okay.
And you've talked about kind of twin realities or sort of parallel challenges, and there does seem to be a kind of different approach in Europe, particularly for these away games, than you're taking in the Premier League. Can you talk about that and kind of why the approach has felt so different in Buda and in Frankfurt to say how it felt against Palace yesterday?
Well, I mean, some of it's just personnel and it's you kind of, when you're putting teams together, it's a sum of all the parts that make it sort of effective. And when you make so many changes, it invariably becomes disjointed, and you're not able to play with the same sort of fluency and rhythm. So, if you look at our sort of back four in Europe, along with Vic, the reason I think that it works so well is that they all complement each other. They all sort of fit the pieces. We've got the speed, we've got the power, we've got the technical ability, we've got the calmness we need. So it kind of all fits together, and that's why I think we look so effective. Same sort of with our front three and midfield. So you're kind of always looking. Whereas when you just, you're putting 11 players on the park who are all very good and capable, but there are elements of that go missing where, they don't sort of complement each other when they're out there. So that doesn't allow you to play in the same manner and doesn't allow you to look as fluent. But again, that's the situation we've been in. Yesterday was, didn't really reach the levels in any of our football, whether it was our press or with the ball. And I think it was, the effect of the changes we made. I also think it was a big emotional night for the whole group on Thursday night, and we got back obviously late Friday morning. We didn't train Friday, which we usually do. So the preparation was limited and all those kind of things. They're not excuses, but they're reasons why maybe the lads didn't perform at the levels we wanted them to.
Angelina.
Hi, Ange. A lot of your style and system, it's based around the players really believing in the process and the tactics. How easy or hard has it been to keep everyone believing the way that they play through this season?
I guess, that's what I spoke about sort of after the game, is that I think I've said all along, as a manager, I guess that's a key to everything you do, just how much belief the people, not just the players and the staff, have around you. Now, when things are going well, that kind of takes care of itself, but fair to say we haven't, sort of had smooth waters this year where there was the opportunity for players to question and sort of maybe lose a bit of faith or belief in kind of what I was doing and what I wanted us to do. But I just never sensed that. I really felt the players, even the most difficult of times, still embrace the fact that, if we continue down this road, we could still achieve something. And so easy in the respects of there was never any point where I felt, geez, I've got to sort of address this at any point. But also testament to I guess the group of players and the staff, because they're just as important. That at no time when there was an easy option to waver on what we're doing did I sense that was it. And we wouldn't have got to the final if that was the case. I don't think. I think even during Europe we had some real challenges with players missing, and they still found a way to overcome those things. And I think when we got to the knockout stages, sort of from probably the Alkmaar away game wasn't great, but from Alkmaar home, those last 5 games, they've really sort of said, okay, well, everything we'll work for has been for this purpose, and been really clear on what we need to do.
And you've spoken about the emotional side of this, Europa League final. There was a moment earlier in the season when you did talk about trophies, and it went viral, it got taken out of context in ways. But for you, how important is winning this trophy?
Well, for me personally, well, great. It's another trophy I can sort of reminisce in my old age about. But more importantly, what it means for the club. I think I've always said that it's the significance of what it does to people that really impacts you. So, a lot of the success I've had has been stuff that's pretty significant. It's been at clubs. Yokohama hadn't won a championship for 14 years. Australia had never won a continental championship. Brisbane had never won one. South Melbourne, my first job, we hadn't won one in 7 years. Celtic was 1 year. Trust me, that's a long time in Scotland. But they had to wrestle back, the dominance that they had for so long. So it's the significance of them that because you know what it does to the club and to the people. And when you look at the historical backdrop of this club and what it's sort of been on for the last 20 odd years, I feel like it could be a turning point in terms of the way the club is perceived, but also more how it perceives itself, which is I think the biggest thing. Because until you do that, irrespective of what else you accomplish, people are always going to say, well, you haven't won anything. And in our game and in life in general, I guess that's the things that matter most when people sort of assess where you're at.
Dave?
Hi, Ange. I was going to ask you about your history, actually, and previous finals. I suppose 2 things. Is there a different energy around a final? Can you talk a little bit about that? And also, do you draw on those, you've just touched on it, but do you draw on those triumphs as you go into this one? Yeah,
I do. And they are different. They're kind of standalone events. There's nothing like them. Every experience I've had, you kind of walk into it knowing that it's going to be different to any other game you're going to play. It seems every game's important, but the significance of what's at stake, you're never too far from the eye line of the trophy that you're going to get, and it takes a lot out of you emotionally, physically on the day. I know the players obviously need to try and prepare as they always would, but you can't ignore the fact. I mean, we're 10 days out, and today is already you've got to start talking about it. So there's a different feeling, and I guess I've had a lot of experience in it, so I kind of know. I try and navigate that sort of fine line between trying to keep it as normal as possible, but also understanding the players that it is a special opportunity that we need to take, and it takes sometimes something more than just the normal to get you there.
I was going to say, can you prepare those players for something that maybe some of them haven't experienced before? I know you have, but...
Yeah, you can. I think you can. I think it's just about just tapping into, they've all got they're all different personalities, but you get to know them pretty well. And, I think that there's always, for me, the key is, a greater purpose than what's before you is always the key. Can you create a narrative where, okay, yes, it is a final. Yes, there is a trophy at stake, but that's the same for the opposition as well. Is there something greater that can drive you beyond that, just winning a trophy? And that's something you kind of build into long before you get to this point. But if it's been consistent and it's resonated with the group, I think it can be powerful on the day.
Tom.
And just on the narrative, there's already been quite a lot of talk about Man United, how they win these finals. Tottenham tend to lose them. A lot of Man United voices in the media. Over the next kind of week or so, how do you prevent that from filtering through to the players? Do you use it as fuel? Do you try and block it out? What's your approach?
Yeah, depending. I mean, sometimes, there's no doubt the comments of the Bodo players had an impact on the group. They're quite keen to kind of make sure that those questions got answered. But again, I guess that's the hurdle this club has to overcome, because it'll always be there. Until you actually do it, then you're fair game for people to say, well, you've always kind of fluffed it on the big stage. So irrespective of what the opposition say or what anyone else says, what you've got to try and do is break that cycle, and whatever motivation you need to do that, you tap into. So there may be things we do tap into, but as I said before, I think to really to do something as significant as we want to do, I think there's got to be a higher purpose than just shutting people's mouth up. I think that's okay. That'll happen anyway. I think it's more about can you make an impact? I often say to the players, at the end of your careers, what you want to do is be able to go back to the clubs you served and know you've made an impact. And the photos I see up on the walls at the stadium are all of Bill Nicholson, the '84 winning team. Fair to say a lot of them are in black and white. So can we get this group up on that wall?
Can I just ask about the Son decision? For you, is it very much a black and white, he's fit enough or he's ready? Or is there some sort of emotional pull there as well, what he represents to the club, his service over the years, what he means to the team?
No, I think it comes down to, get him ready to play and then make the decisions from there. It's got nothing more than that. It's got to be about, like I said, the one thing I do know about finals is there are always moments and there are always players who can change it, but it's going to take a collective effort. It's what we do as a team. It's going to be much more important than individuals on the day.
George. Hi, and you mentioned the '84 team. I mean, they had loads of injuries. They struggled in the league, and they missed Glenn Hoddle for the semi-finals and finals. So many parallels. Have you kind of spoke to the squad about that team, and I guess how much did you know of that team, but before kind of coming to the club?
No, I think from when I arrived, I've spoken a lot about the history of the club and what the challenge was for this group of players, as it has been for every group of players since the club's had the success it did. So, and there's been some fantastic players, world-class players who've played here, and had world-class coaches, managers who have been here, and you need to understand the history and the magnitude of the task at hand to understand how difficult it'll be, but also how significant it can be. So I've always, I'm kind of, talk about narratives. I mean, that's been one of the constants from the time I arrived, is how do we, as a group, make the impact that others haven't been able to. We know it's not just about ability, because like I said, there's world-class players, world-class managers, and sometimes it's just a bit of luck that you need to go your way, but to get that luck, you've got to put yourself in a position to have that success. So, I've kind of made sure the players are well aware of the significance of what they're trying to achieve.
And we saw you out in training. I think you were sort of talking to Rodrigo and Pedro for felt like a long time. That kind of image feels a world away from the kind of image was built up of you of not doing small talk and not kind of getting close to your players. Fair to say you've probably got closer to this squad than any other squad, maybe because of the challenges you got.
No, I think as you get older, I mean, a lot of that stuff references when I was, a younger manager, and it's just the way. But as you get older, you kind of you mellow a bit, and you kind of try and you understand also that the world's changed and people need connections these days. It's important. So it was a nice day. It's not often you can sit out in the grass out there, mate, and have a chat with the boys, and yeah, it's just a general chat. And you know, they're both great guys, not just good footballers, but great guys. And it's always good to get some feedback from them as well. They obviously played a bit yesterday and kind of see where the group's at, and so it's a fairly common occurrence, mate.
Rachel.
Hi, Ange. Sorry, another question about Sonny. So there's a lot of Korean fans in Korea waking up at 4 a.m. for this game midweek, hoping to see him play and hopefully lifting that first club trophy that he's missing. So we spoke to him yesterday, and he was thanking the medical team for helping him return a bit earlier than first planned from his injury. How is his injury currently? Is he going to be 100% match fit by the final? And were you surprised that he managed to get back in time?
Yeah, look, in terms of his fitness, as I said, he's progressing well. Obviously played, I think, 25, 30 minutes yesterday. Hopefully we should get him some game time on Friday against Villa as well. And, he trains right through. He'll be in good condition. And, yeah, he's worked hard to get back with the medical team. It was a bit of a funny injury. He just no real kind of sort of prescribed length of time. It was just how he felt and how he progressed, but he worked hard on it with the medical team, and yeah, it was important he gets some game time, and yeah, hopefully he just kicks on now.
Him and Ben Davies are the only two players left from that last European Cup final. How much motivation would that heartbreak be to bring back a different result this time for them?
Yeah, I think, like I said, Ben and obviously Sonny have been here quite a while and understand that the opportunities don't come along too often. It's not like you get in, a final every year. And so when they do come along, like I said, the last one was, 5 or 6 years ago, you want to take that opportunity because you just can't assume it'll come again next year or the year after. And again, I think both of them are a good reference point for the rest of the boys.
James, to finish, please. Thank you.
Hi, Ange. You mentioned Spurs need to break the cycle, and when you talk about how you've broken that cycle at other clubs in the past, is Tottenham the toughest version of that situation that you faced in your career?
It's hard to say. I mean, I guess the challenges of this year have made it feel like it's harder for sure, because, like I said, stuff that's happened this year that never happened before in my career around sort of just events that are out of your control. So, and I think obviously the attention that the league gets and obviously the attention that the club gets make it feel like it's it's more of a push to get it to where you want to, for sure. Maybe some of the other clubs and the circumstances, there was less kind of, not resistance, but less sort of less barriers to overcome. Seems like here there's a lot. So and like I said, it's, you just have to look at where the club's been for the last 20 odd years. It's not because of the lack of players, quality players or managers. They've all been through here, so you realise that. But I realised that when I took the role. It's not going to be an easy, not an easy, but it's going to be a massive challenge. But we've given ourselves an opportunity, and I think now the key bit is to try and take that opportunity.
So you feel it has primarily been a psychological thing, do you think, for Spurs?
Some of it, not all of it, because you can't dismiss the fact that I've also had to change pretty much everything at the club in terms of playing style, in terms of the squad. It's not like I took over a team that finished third. It was constantly in that, actually, I mean, the year before I took over, we were 8th. We weren't even in Europe. Didn't even qualify for Europe. So it wasn't like, so it's not just been a, kind of, okay, this is the final bit. you know, I've had to do a whole lot of other things. We've done a lot of heavy lifting in this last, 2 years. We've signed a lot of young players with the right kind of thinking in the future. That's costing us now because we don't have a squad that can cope with what's going through. But so it hasn't just been psychological. It's just that it's been, like I said, it's about trying to change a whole range of things, but also have that piece. Because I always, my view was that's what I'll get judged on. Like I said, I could have been sitting here 5th last year, 5th this year, and maybe maybe people wouldn't be waiting for the white smoke to see if it's my last one, but they'd still be saying, Ange, that's great, but that's all been done before. Until this club wins something, then you haven't really made an impact. So I kind of knew that for however long my tenure last year, that's what it's going to be judged and measured on. So we've got ourselves an opportunity to do that.
Thank you.
So, everyone got the white smoke reference. Yeah. I need to explain myself.
Are we going back out now?
Back out.
Back out.